Hello, class. Good afternoon. Welcome to CAD 152, Computer Aided Design. Um, this class is really geared for those who are um, starting off their career in the field of engineering, or may not necessarily be engineering, but could be architectural. But a field typically that utilizes CAD software, and the CAD software they're going to be using is AutoCAD. Okay. Um, there's some of you brought to my attention that um, you haven't been at a computer for a very long time, or you're just not coming back to school for whatever the reason may be, that you've taken a break or whatever the case may be. I don't want you to be alarmed at all. Okay, I'm here to help, um, and we are going to be successful in this class. Okay, um, AutoCAD is like an ocean, and it has layers to it. So I don't want you to put the pressure on yourself that you have to master AutoCAD in 15 weeks. Um, you have people who've been studying this for decades. Um, as long as you understand the basics, as long as you understand the basics, trust me, you can run with the sharks. Okay? Um, and that's what I'm here to really just introduce you to the basics. We'll do some advanced stuff, but not not too aggressive. Okay. Again, it's one thing to be acclimated with how a computer works. It's another thing to be acclimated with the software, and then on top of that, trying to um, be very proficient in whatever you're designing for whatever application it may be. Okay, so I just kind of want to keep those in mind and keep those in perspective, and just have fun. Let us have fun in learning. Okay, and I'll take away a lot of the tension. Um, this whole epidemic right now has made things a little bit strained, but we're going to get through this. Okay, so I can be reached. You can text me, you can call me on my cell phone, call me on my office phone. If I'm here, if I'm not here, you can call my cell phone. If you're having any issues, you can we can schedule a time to meet, either through Zoom or we can meet in person. You can find a classroom that we can go, and we can hash out whatever seems to be a difficulty that you're facing in the CAD software. Okay, so there are multiple help for you to take advantage of. So um, do not let frustration get into your skin, because if it does, it doesn't end well. Okay, so you just have to figure out, okay, how can I learn this stuff? And then we'll go from there. Okay, so again, I do not want you to be frustrated. Anything new, um, there will be a level of anxiety, um, but we as human beings, we have to control all of that. We have to control all of that. Okay, there's many things I learned that are very new, and I just have to take it day by day. Okay, and just make sure I understand what I'm doing. I rather learn something very little very well than try to learn a lot and don't really retain it. Okay, so I just want to just encourage you um, to um, just learn. Okay, learn, ask questions, and I cannot stress practice. You have to practice every day. If you want to be good at it, you got to practice every day. It's like eating, you know. Unless you're fasting, that's when you skip a meal. But not fasting, that means you're eating. So AutoCAD, you have to be at least a minimum an hour, minimum 1 hour. It could be a combination of watching videos, um, the videos that I post, or a video on YouTube, or whatever resources I kind of give you. And you can also do your own homework as well. Again, if you want to be good, you want to run with the sharks, you have to have multiple streams of resources. I have quite a few books on AutoCAD from different authors, because each author looks at a problem or looks at AutoCAD differently. Okay, so and as we go through AutoCAD, you'll find out there are multiple ways of doing one one function. There's multiple ways. You just have to find the way that works best for you. I will show you the ways that I know, and then you can tweak it. You can, once you know what, how to get from point A to point B, you can revise it, whatever you feel that you have to do to make you more proficient. So just always keep in mind there's different ways of initiating a drawing. Okay. So with all that being said, I'm going to give out problems every week um, for homework. And for those who are actually taking the course as a certificate, they're not necessarily enrolled or they're not getting a credit for it, but it's like a certificate. I'm really asked to take an attendance to ensure that the individuals are actually participating in the class. So my way of taking attendance is you submitting your homework. And if I give you homework today, it's typically going to be due next week, Tuesday, by midnight. Okay? If you run into any difficulty, you have a whole week. Please don't wait to the last minute to try to contact me. Um, that's just not the best way to go. Okay? So I really strongly encourage you that you take a hold of it now. Start looking at it every day. Just make a habit of looking at it every day, because it's a lot of layers to AutoCAD. It's a lot of layers. Unfortunately, I can't go through the whole AutoCAD in 15 weeks, but I will give you just enough to to make you more interested. And again, each industry uses AutoCAD slightly different, whether you're architecture, whether you're plumbing, whether you're electrical, whether you're mechanical, whether you're civil. But either way, a line is a line and a circle is a circle. It's just when you branch off to different applications, you just have to understand their terminology. And that's how typically the CAD software will be built on that end. Okay. So without further ado, let's go to kind of let's kind of look at what we're going to be talking about as far as this particular PowerPoint is concerned. And here we typically going to address a few things. Why AutoCAD, okay, and the value of planning your work and system management. And I cannot stress it enough that before you start drawing, you want to have a designer's intent in mind. And typically what that means is how can you um, create a roadmap for yourself from start to finish? Because if you have to revise that part 5 years down the road, you want it to be very efficient when you make that revision. Okay, so that's what we call designer's intent. Okay, so what is the purpose of and importance of drawing standards? And that's very important. Um, whatever application you may find yourself using AutoCAD, whether again it is architectural, whether it's plumbing, whether it's electrical, they're all codes and standards that you have to abide by. So it would I typically would not be able to address all standards. I can just address just some of the standards and at least give you the information to know where to find it if you need to, when you need to apply it, because you have to apply whatever industry you're going to find yourself working. Then we're going to get started with AutoCAD, how to start and exit AutoCAD. And most important, we're going to spend some time here just trying to understand the interface of AutoCAD. How do you typically work the mouse? Okay, and we're going to do typically a very small demonstration, which that will be part 2 of this video, and I'll show you how to typically set up your drawing area. And again, there's more to it, but I'm just going to be doing it bit by bit, so I don't want to overwhelm anybody who's just coming back, who's coming back to use a computer, or who's this is their first time using AutoCAD. I don't want to chase anybody away by giving too much information. Okay, so we'll be doing it bit by bit, um, and then you'll see me. I'll be kind of be repeating a lot of the concepts, and that's the purpose for that, so to reinforce it into your mind. Okay. So when we look at AutoCAD, AutoCAD is nothing more than a graphic tool, right? That helps engineers to design, analyze, and eventually materialize a product in various industries. And it kind of gives us the flexibility of working in a 2D platform and a 3D platform, and vice versa. So you have here, this is a 3D model, okay, AutoCAD. Likewise over here, another 3D model in AutoCAD. And typically you can just add features to your parts, okay. Um, from architectural standpoint, we can use AutoCAD, and for blueprint applications, you can also use AutoCAD, okay. So AutoCAD is very flexible in its delivery and in its learning. In terms of work management, as I said before, how you manage your your time is really incumbent upon your detailed knowledge of the commands. Okay, know which command and processes would best suit, suit be suitable for the task that you are actually trying to accomplish. Okay, so understanding what these command functions do is very important. Um, it's not just putting a line together, but how quickly or how efficiently can you put a line together. Okay? It's good practice to plan your drawing sessions thoroughly, right? In order to organize your thoughts. Okay, so when a drawing is being given to you, you typically want to figure out, okay, where do I want to start first? How much information do I have? Because that will determine where you start first, and then you can work your way from there. And again, I can't highly stress standards. Very important to understand the standards. And we talk about standards, just mean how thick should a line be, how thick should your leader be, how thick, what's the size of your text, what kind of layers would you be using. These are all standards. Okay. And again, this has happened numerous times and very painful when you don't save your work and somebody knocks your computer over and you've lost all 2-3 hours of you sitting there. So please save your work very, very consistently and often. Okay. So these steps will help you find it easier to use AutoCAD commands. Okay. Methods, and your drawing experience will be a lot more productive. And that's the whole premise of you um, creating a work manager ethic within your journey of CAD. Planning your work. You want to be able to draw plans that requires thinking about the entire process. This is a F of the project. Okay. Um, Drawing plans focuses on the content you want to present, um, objects and symbols you want to create, and the appropriate use of standards. Okay. Again, I cannot highlight the importance of focusing on um, the end from the beginning, so to speak, and how would that journey be? And you cannot exclude the kind of standards you're typically going to be using. Again, don't be in a hurry to learn this AutoCAD. It takes time, okay? Um, but you'll be surprised. I've had students in the past. They started from just the basics, and they didn't even have the basics. They didn't know how to draw a line, but they were very diligent and very consistent with it. And by the end of the week, end of 15 weeks, I was very impressed. So it's doable. It is doable. Okay. So standards, your drawing standards. Keep in mind that you want to be able to keep a storage where you just create a file where you actually place your drawings. Okay. Um, Keep in mind the units of measurements and the kind of templates, your layout characteristics, your border, title blocks, symbols. These all affect your drawing standards. Okay, as I said before, your layers, your text, what size you want them, what size your dimensions and multi-leaders, and how you're going to typically plot your drawings. Okay, so getting started with AutoCAD, we have this quick tool access bar, which right now you may have some default keys such as new, save, undo, open, and I'll show you as we go on how to change all of that. Again, think of AutoCAD, the software, as your vehicle. You get into your vehicle, you adjust your mirrors, you adjust your seat. That same thing with AutoCAD. You have to make it once I show you where to go, how to get to certain commands, you tailor it to your own functionality. Okay, because you're not going to use everything on AutoCAD depending on what industry you're in. You may only just use a set full of functions. Okay, so, but I'll show you how to do all of that as we go on. So we look at AutoCAD. As I said before, here's a layout. Here's an interface right here. Okay, you typically have, and this is known as your ribbon. Okay, and think of a ribbon as a toolbox. So a toolbox has drawers, right? And then your drawers can be like your panels. Okay, and inside your drawers you have tools. So inside your panel here, you have your line, your polyline, your circle. So each panel has a set of commands that are accessible to you. Now you can change all of this. There's plenty more. These are just more of the default functions that AutoCAD typically gives us. Okay, so you have a draw, you have to modify, annotate, layers. We'll start talking about blocks when we start implementing um, title blocks, and or when we do like architectural drawing. Rather you have to keep drawing a sofa over and over and over again, you can just create it one time and create it as a block. So whenever you need it, you can just call it and input that particular drawing um, into your overall drawing. Okay, and we'll talk about the properties, in particular, creating how do you match your properties, um, and then I would, as time goes on, I'll talk about these ones on the far um, right hand side of the screen. Okay. Want to keep in mind that you have your user axes. Okay, this kind of lets you know where you are, X and Y. When we get to 3D, you're going to have your Z, your X, and your Y coordinates, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then here are some more tools for you. Again, how do you control your interface? Okay, and I'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. And you also have your view cube, which allows you to look at different views depending on what you're trying to draw. Okay. Okay. So when we look at our, our draw toolbar, okay, we have again, all shapes in the world are made out of only two geometric shapes: a line and an arc. And then in between, you can manipulate them to however you want, but if it all boils down to one straight line and an arc. Arc can be a circle if you want to consider that to be arc, that's fine, but it has a curvature. So we have a line, a polyline, a circle, an arc, and then you have a rectangle if you want to create that, an ellipse, and then we can actually use our hatch. Okay, and I have them outlined here what each one does. Okay, and then again, I just kind of want you to be familiar with the icons and the commands. And this is of course your save button. Okay, this is your print command. Um, if this is your open. Okay, so these are, again, this is not the only way to access these commands. There's several ways. You don't necessarily have to use your mouse, but um, I'm just going to teach you one or two or three ways, and then there are other ways that you'll find out as a function of time. Okay. Alright, so I have all these typically um, defined. Okay. Now, we want to move on to our modify panel. And in this panel, exactly what it means you want to modify something. So if you want to move it, you can. If you want to copy it, you can. If you want to stretch it, you can. And these are all the different how they look graphically. Okay, um, you find out that as you go on, you may not necessarily want to click move, but you may want to just type in the letter that symbolizes the command move, okay, or copy or stretch, okay. So if you want to rotate something, okay, so say for instance you have a line, a vertical line, and you want to be able to now move it, let's say 45 degrees, okay, so it was vertical before, but then you wanted to move it 45 degrees, okay, so you would actually create a rotate, okay. What if you wanted to mirror something, okay, rather than you having to draw, let's say um, we have something like this. I'm trying to draw as symmetric as I can. Um, so let's say this length is equal to this length. Okay. Okay. So I'm just trying to. There we go. Okay. Rather than you drawing this whole piece out like this, you can just draw one side, and then you can mirror it over to give you the full diagram. Okay. If you want to scale something, you can. You want to trim if something is too long or too short. If it's too short, you extend it. If it's too long, you can trim it. Okay, and a fillet. So fillet typically you can create if you have if you have a perpendicular intersection here, and you want to create a fillet whereby it will look something like this. And that's what a fillet typically is. Okay, and an array. If you want to create multiple things, say for instance, I wanted to create these 4 circles within this circle. Rather than me trying to um, draw all these 4 circles, I could just draw only one and then array it around. Okay, so these are techniques that you would pick up as you go along to kind of make life a lot more efficient. And your array can be either polar or rectangular. Okay, and we'll talk more about that as time goes on. So when we continue to look at our ribbon, we look in the annotation tab. Um, we have text, which allows us to create text. Okay. We have our dimension, allows us to create dimension whatever object that we are drawing. At least apply some dimensions to it. Any dimension could be linear, it could be angular. You could have a diametral dimension. Multi-leader typically allows you to create. It works hand in hand with creating notes or text. Okay. So the layers portion of this ribbon is very, very important. Very, very important. This kind of distinguish between good work and kind of not so good work. Layers. And I'll show you how to create layers. But every drawing that you will turn into me has to have layers. Layers distinguish distinguish objects within an object. Okay. So if you were to draw a house, you know, the top layer, your roof will be one color or one layer, and then the body of the house would be another. Okay, they should not be the same. Okay, we talked about blocks earlier. Okay, so again, you can use the creation of blocks to assert in drawings rather than drawing one object over and over and over again. You can draw it one time, and then um, actually you can make it a block. So whenever you have to revisit that drawing again, if you need additional components of that item that you drew, you can just call for it and insert it as a block. Okay. And then of course we have our properties, which typically just allows you to switch layers. Say for instance, going back to the house again, and then you actually want to construct an extension. Um, so if you want to make this layer, if you want to switch layers, like this was This might have been, I don't know. Layers typically not only just colors, but it also has other information embedded inside of it, like what kind of line do you want to use, what's the line weight that you want to use. Um, so say if this was a green color and this was red, I'm just making these up as an example. I can switch them around using properties. I can switch layers. I can switch layers around, or I can make my roof the same color as this extension here, which would be green. Rather than it being red, I can make it green by just initiating a match property under properties tab. And as time goes on, I'll go through the rest, following to my right. Um, Again, I don't want to flood you with too much information. I just kind of want to introduce um, the ribbon to you, um, the drawing area to you, and let you get acclimated um, to using certain functions. Okay. So another aspect of our um, that I like to talk about of our interface, I want to be able to talk about the command line. Okay, this is your command line. So this line typically it's located by default located on the lower part of the screen. Okay, and you can actually type your inputs. You can look at the history through the command line. Um, and if anything happens whereby you click a button and your command line just disappears, just always hit Control plus 9. Okay? Those three buttons at the same time and your command line will appear again. And if you want it to disappear, you can Control plus 9. Um, the, the model tab, which is right here, a model tab is nothing more than an environment which allows you to design and draft the product geometry. Okay? Which is connected to your layout. And we'll talk about this more. Okay. Um, Keep in mind that a layout represents a sheet used to organize scale up a drawing or scale down a drawing that needs to be plotted. Okay. So and also keep in mind that within that layout, you're gonna input your borders, your title blocks, notes, and of that nature. Another function or another behavior in AutoCAD that's worthy to note is your coordinate axes. Okay, you always have to know where you are at every given time. It's like driving, you know. It's like your GPS. So it typically indicates to you a location and an orientation and the orientation of your coordinate system. Okay, your crosshairs. Okay, your crosshairs are primarily used to draw. That's what you use the crosshairs. Now you can extend them or you can make them smaller. And I'll show you how to do all of that. Okay. Now when we look to the right, we look um, to the right hand side of our um, bottom component of our drawing. Okay. Um, we have a few more tabs. Um, we like to call them quick access tabs. Okay. So again, these numbers that would be jumping around whenever you move your cursor around. These number again is just nothing more for coordinate axes purposes. Okay, we call it a drawn coordinate. Okay, now you have your model space. Okay, or paper space. There's just nothing more. There's nothing more than a replicate of this right here. Okay, you'll find out that in AutoCAD there can be some redundancies, but that's the way the designer or the CAD technician wants it to be. Okay, so again, as I was saying earlier, there's multiple ways of doing one thing. There's not only just one way. Okay, you'll find the most efficient way for you. Okay, so moving on, we have This icon right here is would be known as a grid, okay, which I will demonstrate. But if I hit F7, a grid will come on, like graph paper will come on to the screen. And again, AutoCAD is a coordinate-driven software, so it likes to know where everything is. Okay. The next one, moving to your right. Okay. This is known as an object snap, and if you want to initiate that, that's going to be F9. Okay. Now, if I were to initiate this triangle right here, that would take me to my snap settings. Okay. And we'll talk more about that. Okay. My dynamic input just allows me to be very efficient when I'm drawing a line. Okay. Then you have um, your ortho. Okay. Ortho just typically means, think of ortho like straight, like orthodontist, or ortho is just straight. So you may have a drawing that you want to replicate, and it's all straight lines. So rather than you making risking the mistake of drawing a crooked line, you could just initiate ortho, and it will give you that straight line. Okay. Now you have your polar tracking. You can F10 is the key to initiate that. And polar tracking just allows you to draw a line with an angle. Okay, so this angle may be 45 degrees, and the length of this line may be 5 inches. Okay, and right next to it is the settings, your track settings. And typically what that means is, which I'll show you, that whenever you have whenever you want to draw a line, or particularly a line, you can fix to what angle that line will be made available. You can make it 5 degrees, 10 degrees. So I can move this line from 10 degrees. That might be a good example. So this is 10. So this is 10. Let's say this is 10 degrees, and this is another 10 degrees. That's 20 degrees. Then they go. So we'll go in increments of tens. This is 30 degrees. You can set that by your track settings, and that's right here. Okay. Erase this part. Okay. So then we can take it a step further. We can look at our object snap, which is F11. Okay. Um, and then, I'm sorry, object snap tracking, which is F11. Then you have object snap, which is F3. Okay. And you can set those, whether you want it to be, whenever you have a drawing. Let's say I have a circle, um, and I want to move this circle, but I only want it to click on the center of that circle. So this is where you would do um, that kind of functionality. Or let's say, for instance, I have a rectangle, and I want to move this rectangle, but I don't move it from the actual corner. Well, I can create, this could be an endpoint right here, so I can initiate that function where it can move from endpoint. So we'll talk about all of these different functionalities, and then right here is your line weight. Okay, line weight is nothing more than how thick do you make your drawings, your lines, your objects. Okay, then your workspace switching. Okay, and then I'm sorry, this is your workspace switching. So you can switch from 2D to 3D workspace. Okay, so this right here is considered to be your workspace. Okay, then if you want to customize, your all these different icons that I'm erasing right now, um, I can change all of that by these 3 horizontal lines. I can change every single last one of them if they don't suit what I need to make my job a lot more efficient. Now the mouse is very useful tool. I've seen some people who draw without a mouse. I don't understand how, but it seems to work for them. Um, so with the mouse, you can actually, if you want to be able to zoom extents, meaning you want to zoom out or zoom in, you can double click on your wheel. Okay, and keep in mind that your left button typically picks icons and menus, right? And then you can actually initiate a command or end a process using the right side of the mouse. So kind of getting acclimated to the mouse and what it does is very important. And that's all part of the training process. So before we start, I'll give you another demonstration, but just if you were to, to set up your drawing area, of course, you will come to your, again, there's several ways of actually initiating a new drawing area. I can come to the application here, or I can actually click this button here. Okay, so there's different ways, but either way, if I create something, I want to create something new, and it's going to be a new drawing, um, I typically want to um, follow those steps, right? And then I like to have this screen, this little dialog box come up, because what this tells me is, do I want my drawings to be in metric or in imperial? Okay. Now, if you don't see this bar in your command line that's down here, the command line down here, type in start up and hit enter. Once you hit enter, it's going to ask you, if you don't see this if you don't see this dialog box here, that means your startup is at 0. So you have to change it to a 1. When you change it to a 1, whenever you start a new drawing, this will pop up. Okay. So when you step 1 in creating a new drawing space, you want to specify your units. Units can be found by typing in on your command line again. You can type in units, and then we'll go through all of that in the next video that I'm going to show. And then we're going to specify our drawing limits. So again, our drawing limit is, think of, we want to be able to draw, this is our drawing space right here. And I want to be able to draw, say for instance, I want to draw a needle. Okay, this is the size of my drawing space now, right? Say this is like 9 feet by 12 feet. And my needle is like right here. As you can see, this needle compared to my drawing space is just not equivalent at all. So the idea behind creating your drawing limits is you want to be able to fit your drawing space a lot more, agreeable with the object that you're drawing. Okay, so that goes back to dimensions. Okay, so if you know how the size of what you're trying to draw, you can actually, through your drawing limits, you can create the environment whereby it doesn't look too small, doesn't look too large. Okay, because all that really affects how you when you want to dimension, it affects the size, it affects the text. So you typically will just want to kind of keep that in mind, that whenever you want to create a new drawing, you want to specify the drawing limits. Okay, you want to create layers, and again, you want to save your work. Okay. Now we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about. We're going to draw this in class. When I say in class, I mean I'm going to draw this online, and I don't want you to be alarmed, but I'm going to draw this using all the techniques that I've explained to you for the past 30, 40 minutes. Okay. Um, okay. So this is what we're going to do, and I'll give you, and I want you to read chapters 1 and 2 against next week. So when next week comes, um, we would continue where we left off. Um, I'll go more into the modification of of the commands, but I kind of want us to get a feel of how to draw a line, how to draw a circle, um, and I'll begin to initiate how you create dimensions as well. Okay, we're just going to take it layer by layer. Okay, so if you have any questions, any comments, kindly let me know, and then we can definitely speak, and then I can help you learn more and more about AutoCAD. It's a very special tool. I've been learning it for years. Okay, I've been using it for years, I should say. It goes way back. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.